Right, thanks for reminding me about that.
Good evening, sir. How are you feeling?
Just a wee bit better,
Okay.
but not all that great. Uh, Oy, what are you doing here? Maya, Maya. I wanted to switch off the fan. Sorry, switch off the AC. Actually, please put it on too. All right. This is where we had stopped yesterday. I will very briefly run over these points so that you can see the thread of connectivity, because I don't know, other people may be able to do it, but I certainly can't start. Maya, get me another bottle of water. So I just can't not recollect and you know can not go back to where we began. Uh, See, these are the sources. The whole of Charles Taylor's philosophy is based in morality, uh, and uh, he therefore says that while he's discussing the sources of the self, and don't miss out the making of the Maya, please, making of the modern identity. Uh, that is the important point. He's talking about how, in the modern period, identity is made. And another point to remember is that this modern identity, when we're talking about the sources of the self, in that particular context, we are not talking about the more different people deriving their own uh, different individual self from uh, uh, the modern identity. What we are discussing here, and this is the most um, important point, uh, is that this is something, when he's talking about the self, he's not talking about the individual self. He is actually talking about the collective self. Okay, he's talking about the collective self, and obviously, this is not something that is applicable to the whole of the world. It is something that is only based in European and by extension American, uh, Anglophone American philosophy. Okay, maybe Francophone as well, that is French speaking and English speaking American world, but it is certainly not applicable to the Spanish people. So when we're talking about Europe here again, let us be very, very careful to remind ourselves that it is mainly Britain and France, and later on it is what do we call um, America, and in America again it is the French and the English speaking populations. So the first source, uh, I don't know why he calls it good. Uh, I would have thought goodness would have been a better word, because look at the second one. He's not saying inward, he's saying inwardness. So, why he didn't choose goodness was a question for me. And I had asked him uh, why he did not say goodness. Um, then he said rather, that he drew from the British analytical school, and what he was trying to say is that there is no way in which we should call it goodness, because goodness is something uh, smaller than the collective good. That is what you will find uh, as the answer he gave me in person. He said goodness is something which is smaller, whereas good is more large and an all encompassing category. Sorry about that. Okay, so he says everybody knows what is good through this silent and inarticulate social imaginary which exists in everybody's mind. So you see, I gave you the example of Carl Jung's racial memory. So there is the memory of an entire race. I gave you the example of Jews who are born even today. 30 years later, they will still know what the Nazis said and did with them, with their forefathers, and will hate the Nazis for that. And I also give you an information, the not information example regarding the partition of India, which is a permanent scar in the minds of both Pakistanis and Indians. Uh, The Pakistanis will believe that the Indians are in the wrong, and the Indians will believe that Pakistanis are in the wrong. So that is something that remains in the memory of people for a long time. The social imaginary is also a moral construct that we inherit, not necessarily through words. It's not necessarily through words. So here is, it's almost like what Chomsky is saying. Chomsky says we have structures of language built in our mind, and they just need a little bit of an impetus uh, from outside in order to um, be activated. So I asked him what the social imaginary is, and he said the social imaginary is a passive structure about what is right, what is wrong, what is moral, what is immoral. It is there in everyone's brain. Uh, it just needs stimulus from outside. And when it gets the stimulus, it gets activated. So nobody need tell you what is good in social terms. We are only taught about good or bad, and don't do this, this is not good. Don't do this, this is good. But the idea of what is good and what is bad, in Maya, please close the door. Close the door. Yeah. So, what constitutes good? What constitutes bad? What is morally sustainable and what is not morally sustainable are all things built into our social imaginary with which we are born. It is a moral proposition and it is realized along three axes. The first refers, I told you yesterday, to the beliefs about the value of human life. Okay, if you value human life, if you think it is important, then it becomes morally obligatory to honor those things that the value of human life demands. I'm not going to say more than this, then we'll be stuck here only. The second is that which talks about the beliefs of what kind of life is worth living. Okay, um, we all say that this is the kind of life worth living. This is a kind of life which is not worth living. And this is reflected in the choices and the choices we make every day and the actions we perform in our everyday life. Through these, we make it known to everybody and we reinforce it to ourselves that we believe that there is a certain kind of life which is worth living. And if we have to live that particular life, then we have to make these kind of choices and we have to perform these kind of actions in everyday life. I gave you enough examples. Please go back and listen to that if you still are not clear about it. Uh, then the third axis refers to the dignity we demand for ourselves. Ourselves is not again individuals. Ourselves is a collective social self. Okay, the collective self, if you like. Uh, we demand a certain dignity for ourselves based on the role and usefulness of us in society. So you don't have to play. This is a very important point when it comes to the affirmation of every ordinary life. In that, this point becomes much clearer. Okay, where he's saying that if you are playing a role which is useful to society, if you are a sweeper of roads, you're keeping the city clean. If you are uh, a municipal worker who's cleaning garbage, uh, then that itself is something that demands dignity. The garbage lifter, the sweeper, uh, the one who washes toilets, all these people, they basically demand dignity. They can and they should, is what he means. Dignity for themselves because of the role that they are playing in terms of its usefulness to society. We complain uh, um, if the municipal corporation does not lift garbage on a daily basis. We say this can spread diseases. We don't like a, an unclean city. We would like our city to be, every city to be spick and span. So this is for him, you know, dignity. That is something that is there on the role that we play and the usefulness of that role uh, uh, to society. I hope I'm clear about those three axes and the idea of what constitutes the moral good. Now, he talks about inwardness. This is actually an attack on Locke. I don't know. I've started with Aristotle. Please excuse me. What spellings have I typed here? Uh, let's start with Locke and not with Aristotle. First of all, I mean there are two prongs to this. One prong is directed against John Locke. It is directed against John Locke because Locke, while I talked to you about the tabula rasa, so I'm not going to talk to you about it again and again. He said, when we're born with an empty mind, and it is through the senses, SENCES senses, that the data gets imprinted on the mind, and it is through the cognitive ability of the mind that it makes sense of the data that is going into our mind. So, for example, if you are doing several things at one time, okay, I love giving that stupid example of sitting in a movie theater, you're watching the film, you're listening to the spoken word, you are possibly eating popcorn, and you are possibly drinking a Coke or a Pepsi, and you are also smelling the perfume that the person next to you is wearing. Now, all these inputs are going in at one time uh, into your mind, into your brain. Um, does that mean that we can't make sense of them? Or are we saying that they are going in a sequence, one after another? No, obviously not. They're all going in, all five senses are active at the same time. All five senses are active at the same time. And yet you can make sense of the situation that you are in mainly because of the fact that your mind is your brain by mind, probably Locke will prefer the word brain. It has been given the gift of cognition or the cognitive ability, which can collate all these different inputs that are going into your brain. It can collate all these different inputs and make sense of all of them at the same time. It can make sense of all of them at the same time. This is what we find being said uh, by John Locke. So the world is outside of us. We internalize it through sense perception, and we make sense of it through cognition. But how do we decide if something is morally right or wrong? That is the problem with empiricism. Empiricism is objects, everything is outside of us. Everything that I've told you is outside of you. The movie is outside of you. You're seeing it on screen. You're listening to the spoken word on the speakers. You are eating a popcorn which is bought outside. and you're having a Pepsi, which also is something that you bought outside. You're sitting and feeling the softness or the hardness of a chair's cushion, uh, which is again outside of you. And if you're smelling the perfume of the person next to you, then it basically means that you are uh, not talking about anything that is inside you. These are all external inputs which are being made sense of, which are being made sense of by the process of cognition. But is it is this process capable of telling you what is good, what is moral, what is morally sustainable, what is not morally sustainable? Does it inform you about that? It doesn't. The moral part is the mind. So that is the inwardness. If you talk about the outside world, then you're talking about objects. But how do you judge if something is morally good or bad or sustainable or not sustainable? So that is his problem with Locke, and therefore he differs with him and with empiricism. And he has a problem with Plato also, because when Plato said everything, though we've used the word innateness of ideas, despite that innateness of ideas, should I say something else instead of that? Oh, no, it's okay. Uh, he differs with Plato that the cosmic order is unchanging. Okay, that this is exactly uh, what we see uh, in Parmenides as well, that the world is unchanging. Everything that moves or appears to move is just an illusion. Okay, so change and movement are illusory. That is what Parmenides said, and that is what inspired Plato and his realm of souls and true knowledge being perfect knowledge of an unchanging world order. And that is there with you in your mind. So, in the mind is not the problem for for Taylor. What is the problem for him is that Plato and Parmenides and people like that claim that the world order is unchanging. Okay, that I told you, even for us Indians, uh, Sanatana Dharma basically means an unchanging world order. And that is the reason why Dharma is always the same. It doesn't change from time period to time period. So that is something that you have to remember. He is with Aristotle because Aristotle also believed in things known to us innately. How do we know that we have to live an ethical good life? An ethically good life. I'm sorry. How do we know that? Because it is not a goal that we are setting for ourselves. It is a telos. It is a telos or a predetermined or preordained goal. But we know about it. So, which means that Aristotle is also saying that there is an inwardness. But the difference between Aristotle and Plato is Aristotle believes in practical wisdom, which is your everyday life. You know that your goal is becoming the most moral and rational animal, which is a political animal, where you start off as with a primary natural potential. You start off as a social animal and end up as a wise and rational political animal. And you know that the purpose of life is eudaimonia, which is achieved in the politeia. Politeia, I told you, is the polity in the polis, and that eudaimonia is ethically social life, but you attain it through practical wisdom, through living your life, because every acorn does not become an oak tree. Every society does not become a politeia with eudaimonia in it. So, for Taylor, Aristotle is the best example of the inwardness of the mind because he combines it with practical wisdom, which is absent in Plato. The practical wisdom and empiricism of John Locke is something which is incapable of understanding what is wisdom. It is incapable of understanding that which is moral. Okay, it cannot inform people about that which is moral. The Lockean scheme of things. So let's come to the third point. um, Taylor believes that Protestantism eschewed any uh, hierarchy. Is that this? What is the spelling of hierarchy? Isn't this the spelling? Anyway, even if it is not, hierarchically, um, not hierarchically, eschewed any hierarchical uh, governance.
Sir, HI, sir. HIER.
HIER things. Uh, Governance of religious Thanks, Akshay. Religious governance of uh, religious life. Whereas the Catholic Church has a properly defined uh, uh, what do we say? Um, it defined a hierarchy. You have the Pope, below him you have the cardinals, below the cardinals you have the bishops, and so on and so forth. So there's a hierarchically uh, established governance of religious life in Catholicism. Uh, Whereas if you take the case of Protestantism, Protestantism, for one, doesn't have one church, though the British would like you to believe that the Anglican Church is the head of the Protestant Church, is the head of the Protestants. It is not. There are all kinds of churches. There's a Lutheran church, there's a Methodist church, there is a Baptist church. There are all kinds of denominations, none of which holds itself as being superior to others. It is just a matter of beliefs which makes people take to one form of one form of Protestantism from its myriad forms, but it does not have a hierarchically governed religious life like Catholicism does. So Taylor here is endorsing the idea of the Protestant ethic that one finds in Max Weber. So Taylor is somebody who is talking about the Protestant ethic of Max Weber and is not talking about it, but he is influenced by it. And he likes the fact that Protestantism does not, like, does not have a centralized structure of authority which is hierarchical. Okay, so it is something more disparate, gives people more choices to make. Uh, so you see, uh, he therefore says that there is something good. Um, there is something good in Protestantism. And what Protestantism does is go back to the third axis, dignity, dignity of our, we call it dignity of labor, which is actually quite fine. Okay, the dignity that we demand based on the role and usefulness of what we do in society. Okay, so uh, what Taylor argues is that Protestantism in conjunction.
Sir, what is meant by Protestant ethic?
We've been through it, isn't it? Uh, the church didn't let you question it. I told you about the punishments that it meted out to people, burning at stake
Yes, sir.
and tying to horses and
Yes, sir.
killing people. So it didn't allow you to protest. And if you remember, I also talked about the feudal professional guilds, which did not allow you to leave the guild into which you were born and go to another guild and go to another guild, right? It did not allow for that.
Why, sir?
So you could not protest. The order, the social order was such that there was no way you could protest. But Martin Luther basically protested against the excesses of the church. He protested and said that the church is a corrupt institution. He said that what all it preaches, none of it is written in the Bible. Okay. And when he said these things, uh, when he said these things, he was summoned by the Pope with a papal bull. A papal bull is the order issued by a pope asking someone to appear in front of him and explain themselves. And Weber said, I'm sorry, not Weber, uh, Luther,
Martin Luther.
yeah, Luther said, I have read the Bible. He said, show me where is this sale of indulgence in the Bible? Where is it? Show me. So since he was a scholar, a scholastic, if you like, uh, he was able to challenge the Pope. He was able to challenge the clergy. He was able to challenge the basis of the practices that they were following. So with that came the protest, and the protest led to a new ethic, which is now different from moral. It is a new social ethos. Okay, what was done by uh, Martin Luther in challenging and defeating the Pope in a scholastic argument established a new social ethos, which was very different from the social ethos that existed before. So, what help, the word ethic comes from ethos, right? And you can also say ethos comes from an ethic. It works both ways. So, because of the fact that he was able to, uh, because of the fact that he was able to protest and develop a new kind of social ethos, it came to be called the Protestant ethic. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't believe that you need a church. Martin Luther said anyone can read the Bible. This is when the Gutenberg Revolution also happened. The Bible was translated into various European languages. It was no longer in Latin, it was in German. The first language that it went into was in German because Luther was a German. Then it became an English language thing, a French language text. So once people were able to read the thing, then they understood that the church was not what they thought it was. And apart from that, Martin Luther also said that if a human being like a pope or any clergyman can basically say that I can communicate with God, why can't you, as a human being, communicate with God yourself? Why do you need this intermediary? Why do you need this intermediary institution? Why do you need these intermediaries as in people? You don't need them. So it is for that reason that it came to be called the Protestant ethic, which generated a completely new kind of society.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
so can we compare this with the what do you call Swamis and Babas, just like Pope? Why do we need messengers like them?
No, Swamis and Babas, I didn't get that. Could you repeat it again?
Like Pope is the messenger of God. So
Ah,
there is a belief that these Babas and Swamis are also intermediaries.
no, they're not. They're not. I, for one, don't believe in them. I, for one, don't believe in them.
Yeah.
People say, Bhagwan Satya Sai Baba, then why did he die? God is immortal. My simple question is God is immortal. If Satya Sai Baba was Bhagwan, then how did he die?
Sir,
How did, yeah.
sir, what about Jesus, sir?
Hmm?
Jesus also died, no, sir.
Yeah, so Jesus is also a human being. He's a human being. He's a Messiah. He claimed he was a Messiah. He is not sent by God. He is not sent by God. Jesus also is a human being. You should treat him as a human being. Prophet Muhammad is a human being. They're all
These are
human.
just people's beliefs, no, sir. Like somebody does some good, some miracle, people elevate them like God, like.
Yeah, because there is an entire theory in Carl Jung in his work, which he calls Answer to Job. Job is written as Job, Job, but Job is a biblical character. And in this particular work, Carl Jung says religion is a crutch that we all require, or we think that we require, because of the fact that we are, uh, we are otherwise not sure of where we came from. What are we doing here? If we are suffering, we ask ourselves, why are we suffering? Why should we suffer? Okay, I can get up and ask myself every day, why do I have to begin my day by taking 16 tablets after brushing my teeth? When other people are not doing it, why do I have to do it? You can ask yourself these kind of questions. And if you ask yourself these kind of questions, then you don't find answers. That is what Heidegger calls the throneness of being. You've been thrown into the world and you don't know why. You don't know why you have been thrown into this world. You don't know where you have been thrown into this world. But we are thrown into this world. I can ask myself, there are so many people older than me who look younger than me, who are healthier than me. Why am I this huge whale, hippopotamus, rhinoceros, elephant? Why have I become this? I wasn't this. Why do I have so many ailments? So when we don't find answers to these questions, then we are told that there is a God and we start believing in it. And let me be very honest with you, while I don't believe that any human being can be a God or a messenger of a God, I believe in the divinity of the universe. There is an order in the universe. There is an order in the universe that is more powerful than all of us. And well, I don't know, maybe the karma theory is right. I don't know about that. And I definitely believe that the universe as a whole is bigger and more powerful than the sum of all its parts. The sum of all its parts, it's bigger than that, more powerful than that. So we need some kind of a belief. That's what Carl Jung says. But it should not go into the domain of the superstitious, which is, oh, if I don't perform this ritual, then something bad will happen. Now that is bad. Rituals are rituals. Nothing will happen. I didn't perform. My father was not even cremated by us. Did he come back as a ghost? Is he haunting us? Is he making our life miserable? Because if I go by the scriptures, as the son of him, I should have performed various rituals, none of which I performed. So it's up to you where you want to draw the line. But I certainly believe that the Swamis, most of them are frauds. Chandra Swami and all these, even these chaps who are on television, Garika Party, Narasimha Rao, Chaganti, Koteshwar Rao. My mother sits and listens to them every day. And I tell her, why do you listen to this rubbish? They talk as if they have seen the Mahabharata happening. They've seen, uh, tell me one thing. Why is Rama not worshipped in, go to Hyderabad, go in Telangana, anywhere. A corner of a street has a Hanuman temple. Hanuman is treated as God. But what is Hanuman? Ram Bhakta Hanuman. Ram Bhakta Hanuman. Where are Ram temples? Very, very few. So we don't pray to Rama, we pray to Hanuman. We pray to Hanuman, not to Rama. While Hanuman prayed to Rama. So that's why I said it's up to you where you want to draw the lines. Do you want to get into an entirely superstitious life? Or do you want to combine rationality and faith, the way in which Kant says, where he says faith begins where rationality ends. But it doesn't say that you give up rationality once you take up a faith. You still mediate that faith with rationality. You still mediate the faith with rationality. So that is why I don't think we need to believe that anybody who took a human form, even Rama, who's supposed to have is one of the avatars of Vishnu, Rama died. Krishna, who is another avatar of Vishnu, he died. The only avatar of Vishnu who has been apparently given the status of a Chiranjeevi, one who never will die, is Parashurama. Parashurama is the only one who's a Chiranjeevi. Hanuman is also a Chiranjeevi, where Rama dies, but Hanuman lives forever. So, you make up your mind. I'm not going to, since you asked me the question, my question is we don't need intermediaries. We don't. If you believe in a superpower, not a political superpower, but a cosmic power, you can try and communicate directly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, where were we? Yeah, Protestantism in conjunction with developments in um, replaced scholasticism with the craft of what do we call these people? Craft of artisans uh, and workers. Craft of artisans and workers such as potters, smiths, smiths. I don't know. I think it is smithies. Yeah, and uh, um, watchmakers. You know, so uh, these are things that we need. Um, thought that sentence won't make any sense. So the upholding of religious scholars, scholastics actually, uh, you replace them with uh, artisans and workers and their craft, uh, and the artisans and craftsmen are potters, smithies, watchmakers. See, science, when it developed initially, it did not develop into the kind of science that we have today, right? It developed into a simple science like a potter's wheel, not the kind of potter's wheel we have in India where we sit and do it. What you see in the Europeans is a sit in a chair, they put a clay pot on a round thing, not a clay pot, sorry, a lump of clay, and there is a rod that connects this round top to a round bottom, which pivots on its axis, and you can keep kicking it with your leg like this and work with both hands. So, that kind of simple technology, which is what led to the Industrial Revolution. It all started off as very, very simple technologies. Okay, so science has grown over the years. Now it is not something that everybody uh, uh, wants or everybody can understand. But the science of doing things easily, I mean, electricians, there is a science. You have to know what is a positive, what is a negative, what is a neutral when you're linking up things. Otherwise, you can die, you can cause a flame or an inferno. So you see, even that is still there. The electricians are also people who understand the basics of science. Okay? Those who come to repair air conditioners, they know how to repair them. They understand what is wrong with them. These people are all there. So, this is the affirmation of ordinary life. This is the affirmation of ordinary life, which is you think they are doing just ordinary things, but they are indispensable to society. They are indispensable to society, right? So, from respecting the so called educated scholastics, you start respecting and affirming those who are facilitating your ordinary life. Uh, and ordinary life is defined as, okay, ordinary life is defined as a daily life of the family. I respect my maidservant. If she doesn't come, we have a huge problem. We have a huge problem. I'm a cripple, mentally, physically, any which way I'm a cripple. There's not much I can do. My mother is old, and how much will my wife do? So we require a maidservant, a maidservant who will help us with things. And therefore, uh, I respect her and I pay her pretty well. I pay her pretty well and I respect her. So that is the thing that uh, we basically need to understand as affirmation of ordinary life. Ordinary people doing seemingly ordinary work are very, very important to society. Something that I told you Gandhi also recognized. Okay, long before Taylor did. Long before Taylor did. Okay, uh, values then are no longer lofty morals. Okay, sorry, morals are no longer lofty values, but simple, everyday affair. That is winding up point number three, the source number three. Point number four is the voice of nature. Taylor's inspiration here Re- Rousseau believed, what am I typing? People are good intrinsically. When they are born, people are really good. And that reminds me of a song uh, by Roger Waters, okay, where he says you could have been born in Shreveport or you could have been born in Tehran. It doesn't matter wherever you're born because a baby means no harm. We have to be taught to despise, they have to be taught to despise us, to run our lives into the ground. They have to be taught that their God will protect them, and they have to be made to believe that their fight is for liberty. Their fight is for liberty. That is what he says. Okay, it's an irony. It's an irony because at one point he says, when World War II was over, the slate was never wiped clean. We could have picked up these broken bones. We could have been free. But we chose to adhere to abundance. We chose the American dream. Oh, Mistress Liberty, how we abandoned thee. That he contrasts with this, okay, where when we had a choice to choose liberty and peace, we didn't. Today we fight wars saying this is for liberty. So that is a contrast. And that is such a Rousseauian thing. It's such a Rousseauian thing. And that's the reason why I am a big fan of Waters. In another of his songs is actually called The Sexual Revolution. Okay, and the Sexual Revolution is one chapter from Kate Millett's book, The Politics of Sex. She talks about sexual revolution. So this man is incredibly well read, well informed, writes amazing lyrics, and great music to go with it. Is really amazing. Anyway, I should stop singing praises about it and get on with this. Rousseau says, I'll just put it as he says, man is corrupted by society. When I say society, read that as bourgeois society. Okay. He says corrupt practices come from society and it leads him astray from his own goodness. Now, Taylor, as opposed to this,
Sir, what is the meaning of astray?
losing track, going off track. So I'm afraid I'll have to. The church talks about the original sin. So the corollary to that is the corollary to this is by birth, human beings are bad. That's why you have to be baptized. You have to get rid of the original sin. You have to do all these things. You have to do all these things, right? So he contrasts this. The original sin, is the sin of Eve. Uh, her eating the forbidden fruit. God had forbidden to eat the fruit of a tree, but so he believed by birth. I mean, the Christians believed that by birth human beings are bad because they carry the original sin of Eve, who ate the forbidden fruit after she had been, what should I say? She had been mm, lured by the serpent. Okay. Rousseau also believed, just putting Rousseau here, Rousseau also believed that natural order is good. There's nothing wrong with it. Huh. Yeah. Oh, किताब भी दे दिए. हाँ, thank you. अ, अभी हाँ मैं क्लास कर रहा हूँ तो हाँ. Natural order is good. It's not bad. It is a social order which is bad, according to Rousseau. Okay, according to Rousseau, it is a social order which is bad, and Rousseau also believed that art brings out Okay, Rousseau believes that art brings out, what have I typed? Ideas that are hidden in the mind, and therefore he is somebody who believes in art, as opposed to, say, somebody like Kant, who only believes that ideas are for introspection. But Kant, we don't have to talk. Why am I talking about Kant? I think I'm going slightly off my rocker. Okay, now can I put here? Can I? This idea of Rousseau. Arey, please go away. Where did you come from? This idea of Rousseau, Taylor calls expressivism, expressing what you know. And Rousseau's philosophy, according to him, facilitated the expressivist turn. Taylor talks about expressivism in the context of Hegel. I will explain that there, but for the moment, expressivism, please understand it as expressing uh, what is there in your mind uh, through art. Okay, so for him, it is a very, very important thing. Um, and this is also a turning away from the natural order, which is an empirical order as projected by John Locke. Expressivism is a turning away from Locke. Okay, Locke. No, I don't want to go into it now. Let's. I'll have to delete something to write the fifth point. Let's try and write it here.
Since it is a recording, you can delete anything, sir.
Yeah, but it'll be a ready reckoner for you to see throughout. If you're okay, I'll put it here. He also talks about adoption. The fifth um, principle is adoption of subtler languages. This is the fifth source, the final source. The self is divided qualitative It is divided into qualitative and quantitative. Okay, the self is divided into qualitative and uh, quantitative. The qualitative evaluations have three strands. Okay, it has three strands. Now, what we'll do is we will get rid of, but the whole thing will go. That's the beauty of it now. Yeah, all right. See, I know, Akshay, that it is there in the recording, but if I have to explain something to you, uh, it is not there. Um, so, what was I saying? Qualitative evaluations have three strands. Then the first strand is the theistic strand. This is the church and its order. The second strand is the Lockean strand, which he also refers to as scientific naturalism uh, of disengaged reason. Okay, Lockean strand, it is disengaged reason because I told you everything which is empirical is outward, and anything that is outward is disengaged from your mind. So it is disengaged reason because it is looking outward at objects which are outward, and there's no way of judging their moral merit. That's why he calls it the disengaged reason. And the third strand is something that he says is the romantic expressivism of Rousseau. In this strand, uh, Taylor sees the framework in which we make the evaluations of the value of life and social goods, not goods like in the primary natural goods, uh, primary social goods, as was talked about, uh, as was talked about by Rawls. Okay, so I'll put that in bracket. But he says the quantification attempts that people make lead to a fracturing of these three strands. So avoid, why did I put qualitative here? Self is not divided. Wait a minute. Yes, I've been in so much pain that I didn't even know what I put. I'm sorry. So one should avoid quantifications. But he also says, even without quantification, the three strands are anyway fractured. Because one talks about a cosmic order, not a cosmic order, a religious, worldly order. The other is talking about a world that is outside of you, and that naturalism is disengaged reason, which is incapable of informing you about what is moral and what is not. So for him, the really important thing is the romantic expressivism. Okay, so he says one should adopt which combines the affirmation of ordinary life and a good natural order with artistic expressions of the inner goodness and thoughts of people. This is the sources of the self. And what I have taught you is a tip of the iceberg. That man who framed the syllabus, he committed suicide last year. Everybody went, oh, ah, ah. This man was promoted for various reasons, all murky ones. He didn't even have a research degree. He had one. Is there any book here? Yeah. He had one book like this. This is Three Men in a Boat. You should all buy it and read it. It was thinner than this book, and the entire syllabus came out. It was a reader. It came out of that. They keep me out of the board of studies because if I put things, they won't be able to teach. That's why they keep me out. People who have joined in 2013 have been on the board of studies twice already. I joined in 1990 and not once have I been on the board of studies. So there it goes. Today LinkedIn sent me two career opportunities in Hyderabad, but I can't apply for them because I have never been allowed to be a part of anything, any committee, anything. Forget all that. Why are we talking about that? Questions? Any questions, please?
Sir, clarification, sir. Sir, are these three stands part of qualitative or quantitative, sir?
They are qualitative. They are qualitative only. Though there is a bit of the quantitative in the second strand, there is a bit of the quantitative because it is empirical and it's outside of us. So there is a bit of the quantitative in it, but it's not necessarily quantitative. But yes, there is a bit of quantitative in it. In the first and the third, there are no quantitative things. They are purely qualitative.
Sir, which is the best book for reference regarding political ideologies?
Political ideologies. See, there's no such thing as political ideologies. So,
This paper, sir.
yeah, this is a creation of that man. I don't know where he is now. There's no thing like political ideology. There's no paper anywhere in the world. This is an Osmania University special. I don't know what book. I can give you names of books for Charles Taylor's Sources of the Self. I can give you for Edward Said's Orientalism. I can give you for Dworkin. I can give you for each of them, but I can't give you one book that has all these. This is Hyderabadi khichdi. This syllabus. Hmm? हाँ, यहाँ पे आलू है, put it. यहाँ पे बैंगन है, डाल दो. भिंडी है, वो भी डालो. ये चिकन भी डाल दो. That's how the syllabus was made. Go and hit that Gundu Babu on his Gundu, the head of the department.
Sir, it's difficult to refer separate books for one topic, no?
It is, madam, but what can I do? Who will write about all these things and about feminism and about ecologism? Who will write a book on all these?
Correct.
They're all different things. They're all different things.
Sir,
Uh,
there is one book written by Henry Haywood, Political
But
Ideologies. Is it suitable?
who's author?
Andrew Haywood.
Andrew?
Haywood. Haywood.
Andrew Haywood.
Yes, sir.
See what the contents are.
Yes, sir.
If they're there, all these things are there, please by all means read it.
Yes, sir.
By all means read it.
We can find the Western political thought any book in any book, but we can't find this.
No, this is like I told you, this is not a cohesive syllabus. This is not a cohesive syllabus. It's not. And I still don't know why we are studying Ronald Dworkin in this. I mean, why are we studying Ronald Dworkin? He's a legal theorist. I taught Dworkin for many years while I was teaching Origins of Legal Theory course. While I was teaching that, I taught it for many years. But where does it fit into our scheme of things? And please, I don't think you've seen your syllabus, total syllabus. Please see the third semester Indian political thought paper. Okay, who all does it have? Pandita Ramabai, then some
Kabir,
Ravidas, Kabir Das, then
Moinuddin Chishti.
Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, and uh, Yogi Vemana, Nammalwar, What kind of a syllabus is that? What kind of a syllabus is that? So,
Sir, how can we expect questions from ideologies papers for end semester exams? How will they be framed? Example one topic,
I have no
if you
idea,
can tell.
madam. I don't know who will set your question paper, so I have no idea.
No, sir, it's just for preparing notes and
No,
assembling.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I don't know because we now have people who can't even speak English. Where will they set question papers? In what way will they set them? I don't know.
Can we have a look on previous year papers to get an idea?
You'll have to ask the head that.
Okay. Where will
Yeah,
they be available, sir?
if they are available, they should be in the department office.
Okay.
If they are available. So, any other? But let me tell you one thing. If you don't have an answer to write, please write instructions of your hall ticket and you'll get a first class. Your senior Kavya will tell you this. Right, Kavya?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's not a joke. It's not a joke.
This is also demotivating.
Yeah. So, anyway, I should at least stop recording these things. Everybody can hear them.
You should have done before 5 minutes.
Yeah.